The cold air of the alien court was heavy. Hundreds of tall figures stood in silence, their faces hidden under silver masks. In the center of the hall, a young alien girl was forced to her knees. Her name was Lyra, only 16 years old, but her eyes already full of fear. The high judge raised his staff, and the echo of his voice filled the chamber. "You have broken the sacred law," he said. "You have betrayed your own kind." The crowd hissed like a nest of snakes, their voices cruel and sharp. Lyra's hands were tied with chains that burned her skin, yet she lifted her head. "I did not betray," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I only saved a life." But her words were drowned by the sound of the court chanting one word again and again. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." The walls seemed to shake. The ground trembled under her knees. The judge's eyes glowed behind his mask. "Then you will suffer the punishment of the cursed." Two guards stepped forward carrying glowing rods. Lyra's heart raced, her breath came fast. She knew what was coming. The punishment was worse than death. One guard pressed the burning rod to her eyes, blinding her with fire. The other spoke the ancient curse, stealing the power of life from her body, making her barren forever. Lyra screamed, a sound that broke the silence of the hall, a cry of pain and despair that would haunt the city for years. The crowd did not look away. They watched with cold hearts. To them, she was not a girl anymore. She was a warning, a lesson. Her face was burned, her sight gone, her future destroyed. When the punishment was finished, the judge lifted his staff again. "From this day you are no longer one of us," he declared. "You are cast out. You will live in the wastelands. You will eat the dust and drink the tears of your shame." The chains were cut, and the guards dragged her outside. The hall doors closed with a sound like thunder. Lyra fell to the ground, blind and broken, the sun burning on her skin. She reached out with trembling hands, but there was no one to hold her. The crowd outside watched in silence. Some whispered, some laughed, but none helped. Her mother turned her face away. Her father stood still like stone. No family, no friend, no one spoke for her. She was alone. The guards pushed her to the edge of the city, where the land turned to rock and sand. "Go," one of them said, his voice without feeling. "Go and never return." Lyra stumbled forward, her feet cut by sharp stones, her hands searching for a path. The city behind her glowed with lights, but she could no longer see them. Every step was pain, every breath heavy with smoke and dust. Night came, and the stars above shone bright. But for her they were only memories. She remembered the nights when she was a child, lying in the grass staring at the endless sky. She remembered the laughter of her brother, the gentle songs of her mother. Now all was silence, only the sound of wind and the beating of her heart. Fear crawled inside her, but also a strange strength. She would not die tonight, not yet. She reached a small cave in the wasteland and fell inside, her body weak, her mind filled with questions. "Why did they do this to me?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "What sin did I truly commit?" Her tears fell, but her blinded eyes could not see them. The cave was cold, but it was her only shelter. She curled into the corner, hugging. Her arms around her chest, her body shook with pain, but her spirit still burned. She thought of the moment in court, the words she spoke. "I only saved a life." Was it wrong to save? Was it truly a sin? Her people thought so, but deep inside she knew the truth was different. And though she could not see, she felt something inside her, a spark, a hidden light. She did not know it yet, but this was not the end. The punishment was only the beginning. The wasteland was waiting for her, the years of exile were waiting for her, and fate, silent and unseen, was waiting too. Because after 15 long years, her eyes would open again, and the world would remember the name of Lyra, the cursed girl who refused to die. The wasteland became her prison, but also her home. Lyra walked blind among the rocks and the sand, her hands always stretched in front of her, touching the rough stones, feeling the ground, learning where it was safe and where it was sharp. Her first nights were full of fear. She heard the cries of beasts in the dark. She smelled the smoke of storms. She felt the cold wind that cut through her skin. Every sound was louder to her, every smell sharper. every touch stronger. She began to live by her other senses. When the wind shifted, she knew a storm was coming. When the ground shook with small tremors, she knew a beast was near. When the air smelled of salt, she knew the dry rivers would soon flow again. Her world was black, but inside that blackness, she built new ways to see. At first, she cried every night. She missed the stars. She missed her family. She missed the voices that once called her name with love. But slowly, she stopped crying. Her tears ran out, and her heart grew harder. 15 years is a long time, long enough to change a girl into something else. She became strong, her body lean, her movements careful and sure. She learned how to find roots hidden under the sand, how to catch small desert birds with her bare hands, how to drink from stones that held secret drops of water. The wasteland tested her every day, but each test made her survive. Her scars became part of her. Her blindness became her armor. The people in the city forgot her name, but in the villages near the edge of the desert, stories began to spread. Some said a cursed woman wandered the rocks, half human, half spirit. Some said she was a monster who ate the flesh of strangers. Others whispered she was a saint, a woman punished by the gods for mercy, a woman who spoke to the wind and walked with shadows. Lyra heard the whispers when traitors sometimes passed. They did not see her, but she heard their frightened words. And sometimes at night children came near the edge of her wasteland, throwing stones, shouting curses, daring each other to call her name. She did not answer. She stayed hidden in her cave, listening, waiting. She was not a monster, but she was no longer a child either. Her voice, when she spoke to herself, was low and steady. Her thoughts were sharp like the edge of a blade. Time did not heal her pain, but it gave her silence, and in silence, she found something close to peace. Yet inside her heart, a wound never closed. Every day she asked the same question: why? Why had she been punished? Why had her act of mercy been called a crime? The question lived in her like fire, and though years passed, it never died. Sometimes she dreamed of light. In her dreams she saw the stars again, saw the rivers shining, saw the faces of those she had lost. But every morning she woke to darkness. The wasteland gave her no answers, only more silence. One day, after many years, she heard footsteps near her cave. They were different from the voices of traitors or the laughter of children. These steps were slow, heavy, tired. She smelled dust and smoke, but also something else, something she had never smelled before. The stranger's breath carried the scent of fire and metal. Lyra stayed still, her hand on the sharp stone she kept. For defense, the footsteps came closer, then stopped. "Is someone here?" a voice asked. It was not the voice of her people. It was strange, softer, and broken with another kind of pain. Lyra's heart beat faster. She had never heard a voice like this. The stranger spoke again. "I mean no harm, I am only lost." His words were not in her language, yet she understood. Something inside her told her he was different. She took a slow breath, then answered, "This is no place for the living." The man gasped, surprised to hear a voice. He stepped closer, his feet scraping on the stone. "Who are you?" he whispered. Lyra did not answer. She did not give her name. For 15 years her name had been cursed. Her name had been shame. Instead, she said, "Go back before the wasteland eats you." But the man did not leave. He sat down near the entrance of her cave, his body weak, his breathing rough. Lyra listened. As he coughed, as he fought for air, she knew he would die without water, without shelter. Her heart was torn. Part of her wanted to stay silent, to let him fade. But another part, the part that had once saved a life and paid the price, spoke louder. She gave him a drink of her water. The man whispered, "Thank you," his voice breaking. Lyra's chest tightened, her hands shook. It was the first word of kindness she had heard in 15 years. In that moment, she did not know that this meeting would change everything. She did not know that her silent years were ending, and she did not know that through this stranger, her eyes would one day open again. But fate knew, and fate was already moving its pieces. The cave that had been silent for 15 years now held 2 breaths. Lyra listened to the man as he slept near the entrance, his chest rising and falling with effort, his breathing rough but steady. She had given him water, and that small act had kept him alive through the night. When the morning came, she smelled smoke, faint but sharp. She reached out and her hand felt warmth that was not from the sun. The man had made fire. Lyra stepped back, her heart pounding, for in all her years in the wasteland, she had never felt such heat. Fire was forbidden for the exiled. It was said to call down storms and beasts. It was said to anger the spirits of the desert. Yet here it was, small but strong, a flame dancing in the darkness. Lyra turned her blind face toward the sound of crackling. "How did you do that?" she asked. The man's voice was weak but calm. "I learned long ago it is simple. You strike stone with metal, and the spark lives." She frowned. "Metal," she whispered, for her people spoke of metal as something dangerous, something hidden in the deep earth. The man shifted, and she heard the clink of strange tools. "I am human," he said softly. "I came from beyond the stars, but I lost my people in the desert. I walked until I found this place." Lyra froze at the word, human. The memories of her trial rushed back, the whispers of the court, the judge's harsh voice, her own trembling words. "I only saved a life." The life she had saved long ago had been a human child. Now one stood before her, not a child but a man carrying fire in his hands. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice sharp with fear and anger. The man sighed. "I came with a group. We searched for safe ground, but storms scattered us. I do not know if they live." His words carried sorrow, heavy and real. Lyra felt her heart soften despite herself, for sorrow was something she understood, while the man moved the fire closer and she felt its heat on her scarred skin. "Your face," he whispered gently. "What happened to you?" Lyra's lips trembled. She had not spoken of it for many years. "They burned my eyes," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "They cut my future away. They called me cursed, all because of mercy." The man was silent for a long time, the fire crackling between them. Then he said, "Mercy is never a sin. It is their blindness, not yours." The word struck her heart like lightning. No one had spoken for her in 15 years. No one had called her innocent. Tears filled her useless eyes, but she turned her face away, hiding her weakness. The man did not press her. He only fed the fire with dry twigs. For the first time in many years, warmth filled the cave. Lyra listened to the sound of flames and to the voice of this stranger who spoke without hate. "What is your name?" she asked. "Oren," he answered. "And yours?" Her lips shook, but she forced the word out. "Lyra." Oren repeated her name slowly, as if it was something sacred. Lyra. No one had spoken her name with kindness since the day of her punishment. In that moment, she felt something awaken inside her, something she thought was long dead, hope. Days passed and Oren stayed. He taught her how to sit near the fire without fear, how to warm her hands, how to cook roots until they were soft. He told her stories of stars, of ships that sailed through black skies, of people who built homes among the planets. She listened in silence, every word filling her empty years. At night she lay awake, hearing his breathing near her, and for the first time since exile she did not feel alone. One evening, Oren spoke of something stranger still. "There are medicines," he said. "Old ones from before my people scattered. They can heal more than wounds, they can wake what was lost." Lyra's breath caught. "Heal what was lost," she repeated, her voice shaking. "Yes," he whispered. "Perhaps even sight." Her heart raced. She reached out blindly, grabbing his arm. "Sight," she said again, almost afraid of the word. He placed his hand gently over hers, steady and warm. "It is not certain, but I will try, if you trust me." For a moment, silence filled the cave, broken only by the crackle of the fire. 15 years of darkness, 15 years of shame, and now a stranger spoke of light. Her mind screamed that it was impossible, yet her heart whispered that it was fate. Lyra bowed her head, her voice trembling. "I will trust you." The firelight flickered, casting shadows on the stone walls. Oren looked at her scarred face, and in his eyes there was no fear, no disgust, only respect. And though she could not see it, she felt it. That night, the wasteland did not feel like a prison anymore. It felt like the edge of something new, something waiting. And deep inside, Lyra knew her silent years had ended because the stranger with fire had brought more than warmth. He had brought the first spark of light. The cave glowed with the small fire Oren had built. Lyra sat close to the warmth, her blind eyes turned toward the sound of crackling wood. Her heart still beat fast from the words he had spoken the night before sight. The word echoed inside her again and again. For 15 years she had lived in darkness, her world made only of touch and sound. Now a stranger promised her the chance to see again. She wanted to believe, but fear clung to her like chains. "What if it fails?" she whispered, her voice low. "What if the pain comes again and nothing changes?" Oren's hand rested gently on hers, steady and calm. "Then you will still be the strongest person I have ever met," he said. His words touched her deeper than she expected. No one had called her strong before. Her people had called her cursed, broken, ruined. But here was a man who saw more than scars. He began to open the small metal box he carried, the one he had guarded since she first heard his steps. Inside were vials of liquid that shimmered faintly even in the dim firelight. Lyra could not see them, but she felt the shift in the air, smelled the sharp, strange scent that rose when the box opened. "What is it?" she asked. "Medicine," Oren said softly. "Old, rare, dangerous if used wrong, but powerful." It was, made to heal soldiers who lost what they thought could never return. Lyra's hands trembled. She touched the scarred skin near her eyes. "Are you sure?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "But I am sure of this. You deserve the chance." For a long moment she stayed silent, listening to the fire, to his breathing, to her own heartbeat. Then she nodded slowly. "Do it." Oren prepared the vial, his fingers careful, his breath steady. He crushed a crystal inside the liquid, and it hissed, glowing brighter. He placed a drop of the strange medicine on her closed eyes. It burned, sharp and fierce, and Lyra cried out, her hands gripping the stone floor. "Breathe," Oren said firmly. "Breathe through the pain. Trust me," she gasped, her chest rising and falling fast, but she did not pull away. The fire inside her eyes grew hotter, then softer, like the glow of embers fading. Her body shook, but slowly the burning turned into warmth. She pressed her hands over her face, tears streaming. "See nothing," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Still nothing." "Not yet," Oren said. "Give it time." The hours passed, and Lyra lay in the cave, her eyes closed, her body weak. Oren stayed beside her, guarding the fire, speaking to her so she would not fall into fear. He told her stories of his travels, of oceans on distant worlds, of skies filled with colors she could only imagine. She listened, clinging to his words, trying to believe at last as the first light of dawn touched the wasteland. Lyra opened her eyes. For a moment, everything was the same. Only darkness. But then faintly, a shape. A blur of light, shifting like mist. Her breath caught, her heart froze. "I see," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Something, I see something." Oren leaned close, his voice urgent. "What do you see?" "Light," she said, tears running down her face. "Not clear, not whole, but light." Her hands shook as she reached out toward the fire, and for the first time in 15 years, she saw the faint glow. It was blurry, it was weak, but it was real. She laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, half sob, half joy. Oren's own eyes filled with tears. "It is working," he said. "The medicine is waking your sight." The hours that followed were slow and painful. Her vision came in flashes, in blurred shapes, in colors that hurt her eyes. But every flash was a gift, every blur a miracle. She saw the outline of Oren's hand, the flicker of flame, the curve of stone walls. After years of nothing, even shadows felt like stars. She touched her face, whispering, I thought I would never see again. Oren smiled, though she could only half see it. The world kept its beauty waiting for you. Her chest ached with emotion, too heavy to hold, but deep inside, anger stirred with hope. She remembered the court, the judge, the chains. They had stolen her sight, stolen her future, left her to rot, and now, against their will, against their curse, she was rising again. "This is not the end," she said quietly, her voice steady. "This is the beginning." Oren looked at her, knowing the fire in her words. "Yes," he said. "Your story is not finished, Lyra. It is only starting." She turned her half-seeing eyes toward the cave's mouth, where the desert stretched endless and cruel. For the first time in years, she did not only feel it, she saw the faint glow of dawn. Her heart swelled, her hands clenched into fists. The wasteland no longer seemed endless. It seemed like a road, waiting. And Lyra knew, with sight slowly returning, she would one day walk back into the city that cast her out. And when she did, the world would remember her name. The days after her sight began to return were filled with wonder and pain. Lyra saw the world in broken pieces, light and shadow, blur and color. Every day her vision grew a little stronger, and every day her heart burned brighter. But with sight came memories, memories she had tried to bury in darkness. She remembered the court, the punishment, the chains, the cries of the crowd. She remembered her own words, trembling yet true. "I only saved a life." Oren listened as she whispered these memories at night, her voice shaking but steady. He said nothing at first, only placed his hand on hers, letting her know she was not alone. One evening, when the firelight glowed softer, Lyra spoke again. "I must tell you the truth of my sin," she said, her eyes half clear, her voice heavy. Oren looked at her with quiet strength. "Tell me," he whispered. Lyra closed her eyes, the old pain cutting deep. "It was long ago," she began. "The war between my people and yours was fierce. No mercy, no peace, only blood." She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "One night I heard a sound near the river, a child crying. I followed and I found him, a human boy no older than 7. Her lips shook as she remembered. He was bleeding, weak, alone. I knew what the law demanded. The law said I must leave him to die, or kill him myself. For mercy to humans was treason." Her voice broke, tears spilling. But I could not. He was only a child. His small hands reached for me, his eyes full of fear. I wrapped him in my cloak. I gave him water. I sang to him until he slept. The fire crackled as silence fell. "That was my sin," she whispered. "Not murder, not theft, not betrayal, but mercy. Mercy to a child." Her fists clenched. Her body shook. They found me days later. The boy gone. Perhaps rescued. Perhaps lost. I do not know. But the council saw me, and that was enough. They called me cursed. They blinded me. They made me barren. And they threw me into the wasteland. Her words cut through the cave like knives. For a long time, Oren did not speak, his face hidden in shadow. Then he said softly, "You were punished for kindness." Lyra turned her tear-filled eyes toward him. "Yes," she whispered, "for kindness." Oren's jaw tightened, his voice low and fierce. "Your people feared love more than war. They feared mercy more than blood. They called you cursed. But it was they who were blind." Lyra's breath caught. His words struck deep. No one had ever said it so clearly, so simply. "They told me my sin was mine alone," she said, her voice bitter. "But now I see. It was their lie, their cruelty." Oren leaned closer, his voice like fire. "Listen to me, Lyra. The boy you saved may still live. He may have grown. He may even remember the one who spared him. You did not lose everything. Your act may yet echo through time." Her heart throbbed. The thought almost too much to hold. Could it be? Could that child still walk somewhere under the stars? Could her mercy have shaped his fate? The cave felt smaller, the fire brighter, her chest heavy with both hope and pain. "If he lives," she whispered, "then my punishment was never justice. It was fear. They feared mercy would spread. They feared others would follow my path. Oren nodded. Yes, they wanted to bury your truth, but the truth cannot stay buried forever. Lyra pressed her hands over her face, her half-seeing eyes wet with tears. For 15 years she had carried the weight of guilt, believing she was cursed, believing she was wrong. But now, with sight returning and Oren's words burning in her heart, she felt the chains of shame begin to break. Her voice grew stronger. Steady as stone. I was not wrong, she said. I was never wrong. The cave shook with her words as if the desert itself listened. Oren's eyes filled with pride. He saw the strength rising in her. You were not wrong, he echoed. And, one day they will know it. Lyra turned her face toward the desert outside, where the night stretched wide and endless. Her heart beat fast, her breath steady. The hidden truth was no longer hidden. She had been punished not for sin, but for love. Her people had blinded her to silence her mercy, but they could not keep her blind forever. The truth was a blade now, sharp and waiting, and Lyra knew, with every part of her soul, that one day she would carry that blade back into the city that had cast her out. The night wind howled, carrying the sound of distant storms. Lyra listened, her heart unbroken, her spirit alive. The wasteland had taken much from her, but it had also given her something her people never could: strength. The strength to see the truth, to hold it, and one day to use it. And in that moment, under the flicker of firelight, Lyra whispered a vow. They called me cursed, but I will return. I will show them who was blind. Her words hung in the air, a promise to herself, to Oren, and to the stars above. 15 years had passed since the night of her punishment. The wasteland had tried to break her, but it had only made her stronger. Now, her eyes, once burned and ruined, had begun to see again. Her vision was not perfect, shadows still blurred, colors still danced strangely, but she could see enough to walk without stumbling, enough to face the path ahead. And the path ahead led back to the city that had cast her out. Oren walked beside her, his steps steady, his fire tools tied to his belt. He did not tell her what to do. He did not command. He only walked with her, a companion, a witness, a shield if needed. Lyra's heart was heavy but strong. She had carried silence for too long. Now it was time to speak. The desert stretched wide, but with each step she drew closer to the gates she once left in chains. As the city's tall walls came into view, her chest tightened. The towers of Silverstone glowed under the sun, the same towers that had watched her fall to her knees 15 years ago. She stopped for a moment, her breath sharp, her hands trembling. I never thought I would stand here again, she whispered. Oren placed his hand on her shoulder. You stand now as more than they ever imagined. The gates opened slowly, heavy and loud. Guards stood ready, their faces hidden under masks, just as they had been on the day of her trial. They saw her and froze, their eyes widened behind their masks. Their voices shook. It cannot be, one whispered. The cursed one. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm but powerful. Yes, she said. The cursed one has returned. Her words carried across the courtyard, echoing against the stone. Crowds gathered quickly, whispers spreading like fire. They stared at her scarred face, at the woman who had been blinded and cast out. Some gasped, some sneered, some made signs of fear against their chests, but none could deny what their eyes saw. She had returned, walking on her own feet, her eyes open, her voice steady. The high judge was called, the same man who had raised his staff over her so many years ago. He stepped forward, his mask shining. In the sunlight, his voice tried to be strong, but cracks of unease trembled within it. You dare come back here, cursed one, he shouted. You were cast out forever. You were meant to die in the wasteland. Lyra lifted her head, her eyes fixed on him, her voice sharp as stone. I was meant to die, but I lived, she said. I was meant to stay blind, but I see. I was meant to be forgotten, but here I stand before you. The crowd gasped. The judge faltered. Her words carried truth that no curse could hide. Oren stepped closer, but stayed silent, letting Lyra speak her own fire. They called me guilty for saving a child, Lyra declared, her voice rising. They called mercy a crime, and they burned me for it, but mercy is not sin. It is life. It is light. The crowd stirred, whispers turning to murmurs. Some nodded in secret, their eyes wet with shame. Others shook their heads, clinging to the old law. The judge slammed his staff against the ground, the sound loud and harsh. Silence, he roared. You are cursed, your words are poison, leave before you bring ruin. But Lyra did not bow, she did not fall. She took one step closer, her scars burning in the sunlight, her eyes glowing with new sight. No, she said, her voice low but fierce. I will not leave, you blinded me. You cast me away. But you could not kill truth. You could not bury mercy, and now I will show this city who was truly blind. The air was heavy, the people frozen between fear and awe. For the first time in years, someone spoke against the council, against the law, against the mask of the judge, and it was the one they had thought destroyed. The judge raised his staff again, but his hand shook. Oren's fire tools clinked softly at his side, a reminder of strength waiting. But Lyra did not need them yet. Her words were the weapon, her presence the blade. She turned her face toward the crowd, her voice softer, but reaching every ear. Look at me, she said. 15 years they left. Me to rot 15 years they called me cursed, yet I lived. Ask yourselves, who truly carries the curse? The one who showed mercy, or the ones who feared it? The people stirred, doubt growing like cracks in stone. Some lowered their heads, unable to meet her gaze. Others whispered again. But now the word was not monster, not cursed, it was hope. Lyra stood tall, her heart burning, her vow alive. She had returned to the city that had destroyed her, and she did not come crawling. She came standing, seeing, speaking. The cursed one was no longer silent, and though the judge still held his staff, though the council still hid behind their masks, Lyra knew the truth had already begun to spread. Her return was not just her story anymore. It was a fire, and the city was dry wood, waiting to burn. The city had not heard such words in many years. Lyra stood in the courtyard, her scars shining in the sun, her half-healed eyes glowing with strength. The crowd wavered like grass in the wind, unsure if they should bow to fear or rise to truth. The judge's staff trembled in his hand, his mask hiding his fear. You will bring ruin upon us, he shouted, his voice loud but hollow. No, Lyra answered, her voice steady. I will bring truth. Her words cut deeper than any blade. Oren stood at her side, silent, his fire tools glinting, his presence strong. He had crossed the desert with her. He had given her back the light, but now this was her fight. The judge raised his staff again, calling for guards. Dozens of masked soldiers rushed forward, their weapons sharp, their eyes cold. The crowd gasped. Mothers pulled children back. Old men lowered their heads, but Lyra did not step away. She lifted her arms, scars bare, her voice rising like thunder. You call me cursed, but I see more than you ever will. You call me weak, but I have walked through wasteland and lived. You call me guilty, but my only crime was mercy. The soldiers froze, her words striking their hearts. Some lowered their weapons, doubt flickering in their eyes. The judge roared with fury. She is a liar. She is a danger. Kill her. But no blade moved. The people looked at one another, whispers spreading fast. She saved a child, one said. She lived when no one could, another whispered. Maybe she is not cursed, maybe she is chosen. The crowd's voice grew louder, and the soldiers hesitated. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes locked on the judge. You feared me because I showed love, she said. You feared me because you knew mercy was stronger than cruelty. You feared me because you were the blind ones. Her words rolled through the courtyard, through every ear, through every soul. The judge's hand shook. His mask seemed smaller now. Oren finally spoke, his voice clear and strong. Her people punished her for saving a child. Is this the justice of your law, to burn the innocent, to call mercy a sin? The crowd erupted, their voices no longer whispers but shouts. No more lies, they cried. No more curses. The guards stepped back, their weapons lowering fully now. The judge tried to command them, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of the people. Lyra raised her hands for silence, her voice carrying over the chaos. I do not seek revenge, she said, her voice soft but firm. I seek freedom. I seek truth. I seek a world where mercy is not punished, where love is not called a crime. The courtyard stilled, every ear listening, every eye on her. She turned slowly, looking at them all, her vision still blurred but enough to see their shapes, their faces. I was blind for 15 years, she continued, but I saw more in the dark than you did in the light. I saw that kindness is stronger than law, that mercy is stronger than fear, that truth cannot be burned away. Her voice broke for a moment, heavy with emotion. And now I see again, and I will never close my eyes to the truth. The people shouted with one voice, their anger no longer at her, but at those who had ruled with cruelty. The judge stumbled back, his power crumbling. You will destroy us all, he cried, but his words were empty. Lyra stepped closer, her voice calm, her face strong. No, she said. I will save us. She took his staff, not with force, but with presence, with truth. The guards did not move to stop her. The people did not protest. She held the staff high, and the crowd erupted again. No longer cursed, no longer outcast, she was something greater now. A symbol, a legend. The wasteland had forged her, pain had shaped her, but mercy had saved her, and now mercy would guide her people. To that night, under the stars she had not seen for 15 years, Lyra stood with Orin on the highest tower. The city below glowed with torches, the people chanting her name. Lyra whispered to the sky, her voice soft. My eyes were closed for so long, but my soul never stopped watching. Now I see, and I will never let them forget. Orin smiled, his eyes on the stars. Your journey is not over, Lyra. It has only begun. She nodded, her heart steady, her spirit free. The cursed one was cursed no more. She was justice. She was freedom. She was the voice of mercy that could not be silenced. And as the stars shone, bright above, the world would remember her name forever, Lyra, the girl who was blinded for her sins, but who returned with sight, truth, and fire.